three-day 20th African Growth and Opportunity Forum is drawing to a close in Nasrec this afternoon. The highly anticipated gathering has over 500 small businesses showcasing their products at the Made in Africa exhibition. Newzroom Afrika's Xolani Mbanjwa is there and joins us now live for some details of what's happening on the last day. Xolani, good afternoon to you. What are we expecting on day 3 of this summit today?
Good afternoon, Clement. On day 3, indeed, of the last day of the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act Forum here in Nasrec, Johannesburg, where hundreds of companies are actually showcasing their goods and products with the hope that they will enter that particular market. If I can give you just more details, there are over 200 products that are part of AGOA, where South Africa is exporting to the United States duty-free, but the #1 product that we export as a country is the automotive sector. Cars are actually the biggest ones, and we have, as you know, Toyota in eThekwini, and in the Eastern Cape we do have Mercedes, and in Pretoria we have producers and manufacturers such as Ford and BMW. But to find out more about what this means for the automotive sector in this country, I'm joined by the CEO of the Automotive Business Council, formerly known as Naamsa, the CEO there, Mikel Mabasa. Mr. Mabasa, thank you very much for your time. Your sector is the biggest sector by far compared to all the other sectors that actually get benefits through AGOA when it comes to the exports that we make. Tell us a little bit about how many cars did we manage to export last year to the rest of the world and to the USA. And it's an important question because we come from a very difficult period of the COVID-19 pandemic where the production was actually impacted. But how many are we exporting to those regions?
Yeah, thank you very much, and good to see you, obviously. South Africa is obviously the biggest exporter of vehicles. You know that we actually export more vehicles than we actually sell to our own people. If you look at our numbers in 2022, 64% of vehicles that we produced in South Africa were actually exported out of the country. Mainly in Europe. The United States obviously is beginning to gain some very decent traction. We've seen last year alone 172% increase in terms of the numbers that went only into the United States in relation to exports from South Africa. The other beautiful thing about the South African market is that we're not only exporting fully built units, which is your car that is fully finished. We're also exporting a lot of components that are produced in South Africa, like catalytic converters that are obviously sought after globally, because South Africa is one of the best and leading catalytic converter around the world.
Let's talk about what you as a sector hope AGOA is going to achieve for this sector.
Well, look, we are very excited about the opportunity that AGOA has created for the sector in the last 20 years since this agreement was signed between South Africa, many other African countries who are beneficiaries, and of course the United States. We are pushing quite very firmly, and I think we've heard from the President and a lot of ministers who are here that the extension of this agreement is absolutely going to be very, very critical. Now, for us as the automotive industry, this extension is actually coming at a perfect time. Because remember, we are now moving away from the production of internal combustion engines into electro-mobility vehicles into the future. And now what we want is to be able to make sure that we are able to participate through programs like AGOA as we now progress quite very firmly into the production of new energy vehicles into the future.
Let's talk about that, because the whole world is moving towards EVs, and Europe, where we also have a market as South Africa, are no longer going to be accepting these combustion vehicles, petrol and diesel. They are moving towards electric vehicles. There was a lot of unhappiness from your sector as far as policy movement is concerned as to Are we going to be ready come 2035, which is when we can't, the year, if I'm not mistaken, the year that we can't no longer export, or those European countries can't take the cars that are petrol or diesel, but they'll only be accepting electric vehicles. How ready are we in our different car manufacturers? How ready is the sector to actually start exporting electric vehicles?
Well, look, we've got to produce them first. And currently in South Africa, we do not produce electric vehicles. That is your pure battery electric. We're currently producing hybrid vehicles. Toyota in KZN is producing a Toyota Cross, which is a hybrid vehicle. Mercedes-Benz in East London is also producing a hybrid C-Class. BMW, 3 months ago, announced also a 4.2 billion investment in terms of production of a plug-in X3, which they are going to be producing from next year. To your point, I think we are absolutely very concerned as the industry that our capacity and our ability to be able to export these vehicles into these big markets that we are currently exporting into, that market is going to shrink increasingly, because those markets have already given us notice that from 2030, in the case of the United Kingdom, we will no longer be able to bring in our cars into the UK. Europe, that is the EU, has also given us notice that from 2035, we will not be able to start bringing those vehicles. But I think what is key, Xolani, is that a number of markets, if you look at the Scandinavian countries, they're not even waiting for 2035. We are no longer getting orders from some of those countries already, because those countries have already decided to move a lot faster. If you go to Stockholm today, 80% of their vehicle park is already new energy vehicles, and they are already pushing quite very firmly to bring in new energy vehicles into those markets. And South Africa, unfortunately, we have been moving absolutely very slow, particularly from a policy pronouncement point of view, in order for government to be able to at least give us that level of certainty in relation to what we can be able to do to make sure that we are able to support the production of vehicles into the future.
Lastly and quickly before I let you go, South Africa is well endowed when it comes to the chemicals and the minerals that are used in electric vehicles, batteries. Are we set to actually see ourselves in a couple of years' time being a major producer of those batteries that are being used, because we have the chemicals, we have the minerals already that are needed to actually produce those batteries?
Absolutely. We're working very closely with the mining industry already. We've identified 10 minerals already in South Africa and the rest of the continent, which are required for the production of batteries and also our cell technology. We are working very closely to be able to accelerate R&D around those particular projects, and opportunities like AGOA are absolutely, as I said earlier on, timely for us, because we are now talking to the Americans to say what kind of skills do we need as South Africa so that we can be able to accelerate our research and development into these battery technologies, so that we can move away from what we call pit to pot, where we put our minerals into containers from the ground into our ports and ship them to China, but move to pit to plant, where we can really be able to make sure that next to each and every mining house we have in the country, there are plants where we can be able to beneficiate our own products in South Africa, so that we can be able to supply not only our local manufacturers, but also our export market as well.
And in the course of doing that, you are creating jobs, much needed jobs.
Absolutely.
Mr. Mabasa, thank you very much for your time representing the CEO, rather, of the Automotive Business Council, formerly known as Naamsa, a high impact sector and a huge employer in the South African space, where we need such jobs, and we need to stay ahead of the curve when it comes to developments in terms of electro vehicles. Back to you in the studio, Clement.